For the community, for everyone involved. Asking him to accompany us as we leave this meeting and head back to our destination. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Thank you. Please stand with me as we pledge allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The Board of Adjustments is a 9-member board. We're appointed by the City Council and we serve on a voluntary basis without compensation. Our procedure for conducting business is that I will call the item that we're dealing with here today. If you would please come forward, make your case, and anyone here who cares to add to that comment will be given that opportunity. Anyone here who's in opposition to the petitioner as presented will be given the opportunity to come forward as well. If we get out of control as far as time limit goes, then I have the authority to request that we terminate and bring to a conclusion all comments. But we're going to do our best to give everybody the opportunity to speak. I just ask that you do not repeat what may have already been said. Once we receive public testimony and discussion on this item, the members of the board will deliberate and we will render our decision this morning. I'll remind any members with a personal or a financial interest in this item, you're required to recuse yourself from voting. Any testimony that is submitted by the petitioner or on behalf of the petitioner during the presentation of this item will be binding as to the decision the board makes relative to the motion. I'll remind the members of the board, if you make a motion to deny the item that's presented, you must give a reason. The members that are here this morning, and I want to thank them all for being here. We've got 8 out of 9 that made this special call meeting, and I thank them for being here. Ms. K.T. Brown is our Vice Chairman, Mr. Steve Hughes, Mr. Nathan Williams, Mr. Bo Holmes, Mr. Corey Johnson, Mr. Pickett Reese, Mr. George Howell Jr., and I'm John Stanley, your Chairman. Our land use staff that are here this morning is Mr. Tommy Tyson, our Executive Director for the board. Ms. Tanya Ingram is our Recording Secretary. Ms. Jovan Hines and Ms. Rebecca Chambliss, Attorney for the city. It requires 5 votes to approve a motion. We have 8 members here today. Any questions before we get started? Okay. We're here today to hear this special called item. Mr. Mike Crutchfield, representing the Snowden Community Association, requesting an abatement of a nuisance concerning property located at 1890 Snowden Chambers Road in an Ag 1 residential agriculture zoning district. Mr. Crutchfield. Let me remind the members of the board, this property is located within the police jurisdiction of the city of Montgomery. Mr. Crutchfield, please state your name and your address.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak on behalf of these residents. My name is Mike Crutchfield, and I am a long-term longtime resident of Snowden community, and will be speaking on behalf of our community members. There are some here that could get off and work and, today.
Mr. Crutchfield, could you give us your address?
Oh, I live at 1426 Hobby Road in Snowden community.
Thank you. Thank you.
Montgomery County.
Okay.
Okay. The property at 1890 Snowden Chambers Road is in the police jurisdiction and has been misused at least twice since July the 14th to conduct a commercial enterprise in direct violation of City of Montgomery zoning and other ordinances, including no business license. The events are large-scale paid admission events with hundreds of people in attendance where things like a rodeo and concert have been held. There have been very bright lights, very loud noise and music, and hundreds of people, cars that affect traffic. This road is already heavily traveled, Hyundai employee route used as a cut-through also from 231, 31, 331, now 65, cut-through to keep people from going through town. These events have lasted well into the night and subject our community to a disturbance like nothing we've ever endured before in our community. There was also an injury at one time there. The Snowden Volunteer Fire Department and EMT staff and ambulance responded. The property where this is held is in the PJ in Zone Agriculture, AGR1. And
I'm sorry, please state that again. What did you just say?
The property is in the police jurisdiction and is zoned AGR1.
Zoned, I'm sorry. You said zone, Ag 1. I misunderstood you, I'm sorry.
Okay, and it's not for commercial business. Understand the property owner, promoter have received a letter from the city stating any further event on this property are in violation of city code and ordinances and are forbidden from being held on this property again. It appears they have defied the city authority and openly and intentionally plan to defy the city authority again with another event this Saturday, October the 19th. We're here today to support an abatement order for the property at 1890 Snowden Chambers Road to prohibit any further conduct or use on this property outside of the zoning and other ordinances. This property should be only used for what it's zoned for, Ag 1 rules. Many residents within the PJ that are here today even has to and does abide by the same rules. There should be no exceptions. Our community should have the right to continue to live our lives peacefully without this illegal disruption, noise, and nuisance. Thank you so much. Could I answer any questions?
Board members, anyone have a question?
We do have 102 signatures as the petitioners.
Is there anyone in the audience that would care to?
Can I ask him a question?
Sure, I'm sorry.
Can you give us just a couple of snapshots of events that may have occurred that you've had dealings with the other party involved and what happened and how it went down?
Oh yeah, during the first event that was held, there was a lot of noise. There were dogs barked until after midnight. The noise could be heard inside people's homes as much as 1.5 miles, 2 miles away. Where this property is located, Dr. Pirtle could hear it in his house on 331 above his TV. So that's how loud it was the first time. His wife actually called him several times down there and asked him to turn the noise down, and nothing ever happened there. I mean, it continued on until well after midnight. And so...
And about how many people would you say have attended some of these?
Well, according to the rumor and from the amount of cars there, had to be 400 or 500 people there at least the first time and the second time, as far as I do it. There's a lot of cars there, a lot of traffic coming in and out of there. And like I say, that corridor down through there is a cut-through already for a lot of different activity, traffic going to Hyundai, going to cutting through from 65 to 231, 331, 331.
Were any of the cars parked on the shoulder of the road there? Or
No, they
were
were
inside
parked in the
fence?
field.
Okay.
They were all parked in the field.
So in addition to the noise, it's our understanding that they are selling tickets for attendance.
Yeah, according
They're
to
selling food and drinks, and
According to
maybe
their
in some, let me finish.
Okay.
Maybe, let me start over. They're selling tickets, they're selling food, they're selling beverages, and maybe even alcohol. Is that correct?
The first time they sold alcohol, the second time they weren't granted a permit for the second one. So they let them bring it in, BYOB kind of deal. You know?
Right. And the noise has been going on until past 11 o'clock, is that correct?
The first time it was well after midnight. The second time they did end somewhere around 11 o'clock.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Ms. Brown has a question.
I just want to ask one question. Do you have any security? Do they have any security or anything around since it's within the police jurisdiction?
From what he's told people, that he uses his own security, in the venue, and then he did hire some sheriffs out by the gate, I guess, where they collect the money.
Okay. All right. Mr. Crutchfield, you'll be given an opportunity to come back if you'd
Okay.
like.
Thank
Is there
you.
anyone for the petitioner's side like to come forward and express your concern and add to anything that Mr. Crutchfield has stated? Need your name and address, please, ma'am.
I'm Susan Richardson. My address is 230 Snowden Chambers Road, Montgomery, Alabama. I wanted to address, I think it was Mr. Holmes that asked the question of what was the venue. The venue is a concert, rodeo, and it's always been held on a Sunday evening. And my big concern is that this one is a Saturday night. And looking on their Facebook page, this was several months ago, people from Birmingham, from Mobile, from Florida were saying, we would come to this event if it was on a Saturday night, but Sundays we have to work on Mondays and our children have to go to school. So I have no idea how many people will show up for the Saturday night or the Saturday. It usually starts about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And this last one ended, they said that, you know, that they were going to end earlier, and they certainly did end earlier. But the first one they had, and we could hear it from inside our house as well, and we live a little closer than Dr. Pirtle because we're on Snowden Chambers Road, but we could hear it in our house. And you could hear the rodeo announcer, you could see the bright lights from, you know, it looked like kind of like the fair that you would see off at a distance, you know. And that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Phyllis Roberts, and I live at 372 Snowden Chambers Road. One thing I would like to bring up is it also caused the animals in the area, the cows, especially our neighbor has a little baby cow, and they would run, I think the horses behind me, there were 3 of them that were running throughout the night. And so this is causing a disruption not only to us who had to listen to this. My husband gets up at 4:30 in the morning. We asked them to turn it down. They would not. So he had to get up and go to work at Baptist, and he was very tired. But getting back to the animals, it disrupts the whole area. We are not able to police all of this. And so for them to come in and just blatantly disregard what our area does, we're just hoping that maybe we can do something to get them to stop.
Thank you. Anyone else? Is there anyone here that would like to speak against this petition? Need your name and address, please, sir.
My name is James Brown.
I'm
I
sorry.
live at 5108.
Tanya, did you get that? Okay.
My name is James Brown. I live at 5108 Sugar Pine Drive. I do lease the property from the gentleman who owns the property at 1890 Snowdown Chambers. My main issue with this, you know, being it was short notice and I was not made aware, I had an attorney to come up here and speak on my behalf.
Can you speak a little louder and more
Yes,
direct?
I had an attorney that was going to come up here and
The
speak on my
acoustics are
behalf. You're good.
sometimes not great in here.
Yeah, hey, that's why I used to be involved in music. Me and my both brothers, you know, one of them graduated from Juilliard, in music. He is now the manager of the Aspen, Colorado Festival. I know music, and I know the sound did not travel as far as some of my neighbors say. I even went as far as hired an acoustic engineer to show, proof that he went out there and there's no way that sound traveled point so far as whatever. It went 0.3 miles of as farthest that he detected on the said second event. The first event, I understand it went further than, the said hours. It rained, the weather affected us all, and, we extended the rodeo. And as soon as I was made aware by one of the sheriffs that worked for us, Sheriff Brodery, he sent me an email or a message, which I have in my phone, and it, told me, hey, look, we have neighbors who are complaining. So at that point, that's when I said we had to shut it off. I was told that I could stay till 12 o'clock by the city and by the ABC board on the said first date. I didn't think it would be an issue, so I followed the rules. I went by everything that I was told to do. The second event, after Mr. Crutchfield and the neighbors stated at the commissioners meeting that they had concerns with it, I acknowledged that and I said, let's work with it. Nobody ever got back with me. Even the commissioner, Mr. Doug Singleton, never approached me again to say, hey, let's get together, as he promised that he would do. Never did get with me so that we could do something about it. Never once was I ever called at my personal number. He has my number personally. I even offered it to Mr. Crutchfield. I was never told anything about that. So, I continued with asking permission. I applied for my liquor license. I applied for a license with the state, which I do now have for the ranch. I also have one through the county, which at first time we looked at that map that we were given. That property was not inside the PJ. Part of it was 20 yards. That line has since then been moved from now covering the entire property. If I can find the original one, I would more than gladly show you, but I contacted Sheriff Cunningham and he told me the same thing, that line was moved and it is now covering the entire property.
Sir, regardless,
I understand.
The property is not zoned. It's in the police jurisdiction. That's why we're dealing with it.
Well, I understand.
And your use has created a nuisance.
It has. I don't have a problem with it, but you're already taking a side. You're not even supposed to you're supposed to take a side after you make a judgment and hear everything.
Well, that's why we're here.
Well, that's like I said, that's fine. I understand, but like I said, I know music. Me and my brothers were educated. We know how far music sound travels. There's no way that these animals. I've been working in the fields all my life. That's why I lived in Mexico for almost 10 years. I've done business with animals and cows. You can't tell me that an animal is going to be affected overnight because of one loud noise one time. And then this other time, like I said, we have your own officers who said every time we've told we're going to shut off these events at 10 o'clock, we've done so. I hired more than 10 sheriffs. I even had, after the first event, to not cause nuisance for the medical emergency team that responded that first time, I hired my own staff out of one of the emergency units to come out there to provide. We hired who lives in New York and who deals with noises up there, and he told us that sound decibels didn't exceed 68 decibels on that second event.
Okay. Any questions, board members?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
I was reading here and they said that they possibly maybe you can move it to the Coliseum. Have you looked into that, moving the event?
Mr. Singleton tried to comment to me on that, but he never got back to me. Like I said, this was not something that we don't want to move this somewhere else. If I take this somewhere else, the city of Birmingham already gets enough business from the Hispanic community. We're trying to keep this here. We want other people to come to Montgomery and see what it's
here in
about.
Montgomery.
What's that?
The Coliseum's here in Montgomery.
Oh, I know, but I'm saying he never gave me any other options to contact him. Like I said, I've reached out to Mr. Singleton. I think I've reached out to everybody in the commissioner's office. Nobody ever returns my calls. I mean, I have to do it, and then when I finally do get a notice, it's a notice that I have to fly out here for a second notice when I'm on my vacation.
Ms. Brown, you have I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson, you?
No, I was.
Okay. Ms. Brown, you have a question?
One question. Through all that he was saying, I really didn't know what he was saying, but I did hear the statement made that he made application for the liquor license and other things, but he didn't say whether he received them or not. Being a teacher, I want to know the end results.
Oh, the first ones I did submit, and I did receive it. After that, was not given an application, so I was granted, and I was told that I could do BYOB. So I did what I was allowed to do. The commissioner, even Mr. Doug Singleton, he said, I cannot stop you from doing these events. So as that time being, that line showed us that we weren't, so we were told by our lawyer we could proceed. And said if we can have further communications to move this to the Coliseum.
So to be
I'm more
clear,
than willing
you do not have a liquor license?
No, I don't have a liquor license,
Okay.
not for this one. We're not selling liquor.
That's what she's
Okay, my
trying,
apologies.
she
We're
want
not
to clarify
selling
that. You do not have a liquor license?
We do not have a liquor license, so
Okay.
we're not selling liquor.
Did you
Mr.
have
Holmes,
permission?
I'm sorry.
I just want
Did
to,
you have permission to have the event? Did you come and apply for permission to have the event?
We were told by Ms. Blaylock that we did not need permission to come into the city and ask for it because the property was not zoned. It's not in the PJ. It was recently, I know it was changed. I called the police department and I talked to one of the police sheriffs or police
But it
deputies, and
is in the PJ.
He told us it was not in the PJ. That's why we didn't come back through here. They told us it was a county issue, so we dealt with the commissioners in the county. And I've gone to the county commissioners and they said, we're not gonna stop you because they have, it was the properties in there. There's no there's no ordinance in the county.
So you're saying no, that you did not have permission? That's all I'm asking.
No, okay, no, I
or
didn't
yes.
I didn't have permission because I didn't
Okay.
think I needed one.
Thank you.
Mr. Holmes has a question?
you've made quite a few statements regarding permission and talking to Commissioner Singleton, and he didn't show up, and he didn't do this and he didn't that. He's here, I'd like to give him an opportunity to come up and speak to some of the things that you've said today, if you don't mind.
Mr.
Good morning,
Brown,
Commissioner.
I was back there and I listened to what you said. Now,
Hey, Commissioner, if you would speak into
Yeah.
the phone. We can't hear you
Yeah.
unless you speak on that
I
mic.
walked in, I was a 3-car accident on the interstate, so a normal 20-minute drive took 50 minutes, so I was a little bit late getting here. But I got in late, I just heard a few comments by Mr. Brown, and a couple was that, and I could barely hear him, but he said that he tried to contact me, could not contact me. I have been in constant contact with him, and he knows that. As a matter of fact, he's talking about the Coliseum, I had it arranged for the Coliseum to meet at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday. Charles Jenwright was there, Randy Stevenson, the fair Coliseum manager, was there. Bill, who runs the Coliseum, was there, and Mr. Brown did not show up. We finally got in touch with him. He explained that he had a family type emergency where his sister was having twins and he had to go care for his sister's kids. And we understood that, and I put him on the phone, my cell phone, and gave him the phone to Bill, who manages the Coliseum, and said, hey, we'll do it tomorrow, the next day, and they arranged another meeting and it never happened. The whole thing about the festivals that Mr. Brown has had out there, the county part, there is no zoning in the county. If you want to have an event in the county, there's nothing I can do. We've explained that. Everybody understands that. But the issue is this is in the PJ, so it's a little bit different, so it becomes a Brenda Blaylock. When the first license for alcohol was applied, asked for, it goes through the city. Brenda called us, and Sheriff Cunningham went out and talked to some neighbors, 4 or 5 neighbors close to the house. Did they have a problem with the alcohol license being there? For that one-time special event, 12 noon to 10 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, whatever the event was going to be. The initial event was going to end at 9 o'clock. Now, Mr. Brown, like I said, I've got phone records. We have talked probably more than I've talked to anybody else. The event did not end at 9 o'clock that night. It carried over to midnight. Mr. Brown explained it carried over to midnight because it rained and he had paid for bands, and so he carried it over to midnight on a Sunday night, which people have to go to work the next day on Monday. The music was loud that night. So when the second event came about, I told Mr. Brown that I was going to be at the second event and it needed to end at 9 o'clock. This was on a Sunday again. I encouraged him to do it on Saturday. If you're ever going to do it on Saturday. If the city approves it, y'all approve it, or whatever happens in the PJ, I have no control over that, but if you're going to do it on Saturday, and it needs to end around 9 o'clock. The second event went off well. It was not a big issue. The music was turned down. I was there. I stayed with them the whole time, and it's closed at 9 o'clock. I do give Mr. Brown credit for that. But some of the other things that were said earlier that I got a piece of weren't exactly true in content. But the bottom line is, people live out in Snowden for a reason. They live in unincorporated areas, that is farmland, agricultural land, and the issues that I have with, if somebody wants to have a party out there, if any of you lived out there, and some of you may, if you want to have a party, you can do anything you want on your property. There is no zoning. The county tried to make zoning at one time. It got voted down. People live in the country for a reason. They don't want me or somebody else telling them how to live. But in this case, the property is agriculture. Everything around is farmland, animals. And if you want to have a birthday party for your family, you can do it. If you want to have an event for your athletic team, for your kids, you can do it. My issue, and I think the people in Snowden issue, is that this is a business being run out there in the middle of agricultural land. If it was not a business, if there was not money exchanging hands, if it was merely a birthday party, then it wouldn't be that big an issue, as long as the noise was kept down and was ended at a reasonable time for the neighbors. So, again, we tried to move to the Coliseum. We set the meeting up at the Coliseum. The Coliseum people were there. I was there. Charles Jenwright was there. And Mr. Brown had a conflict, rescheduled it the next day, and it never happened. So that addressed that issue and that question that came up. So does anybody got any questions for me while I'm here?
Mr. Holmes, do you have any more questions?
No, I think that cleared up. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to speak to what he was saying.
Yeah, because I heard a little bit back there when I was standing back there. So.
Anyone on the board have a question from Commissioner Singleton?
Wish him congratulations.
Ma'am?
Congratulations.
What'd I do?
City Council.
Oh, I'm not on City Council.
No, County
You're
Commission.
on
County Commission.
County Commission.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I
I'm
appreciate it.
glad you're on that. I'm going to vote for you.
Well, I appreciate it.
Anyone else have a question for Commissioner Singleton?
Thank you, Mr. Stanley.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for being here. Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am? You got something new to say? Okay, please come up. Mr. Crutchfield, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make the last comment, okay? We need your name and your address, please, ma'am.
My name is Diane Hunter, and I live at 4850 Snowden Chambers Road. Excuse me. I've lived on Snowden Chambers Road since April of 2012. And I didn't know that there was a Snowden neighborhood council or anything that you mentioned you represent the council. I didn't know that we had one. I've never received notification for a meeting or anything. There was just a flyer in the mailbox about this that my husband brought in, I think it was yesterday. And that's at the opposite end of Snowden from where the event was held. We didn't hear anything at that end of the road. And driving through there, we didn't have a problem getting through. Traffic wasn't an issue for us being able to get to and from our property on the days of the events. But I guess maybe our end of the block is out of the jurisdiction for that council or whatever it is for that area, because Snowden is a really small place. And I would think that if there's a a neighborhood type association, everybody would get notified about what was going on. And so that's a concern for me. That there, we heard rumors that you could hear the music all the way over to Rolling Hills. That's not true. You could not hear the music. And those of us at that end talked about it. We said we didn't know, people were saying we didn't know that was going on. I read something about it in the newspaper about the event coming up, but from the noise perspective, it didn't affect that end of Snowden Chambers. But like I said, my concern is there's a neighborhood association that's taking action about stuff and everybody's not being included in the discussions about it.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
That's all.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Crutchfield, you want to wrap it up for us? Or wrap up your presentation?
Just to speak to her a minute, sorry that we hadn't got to
You're going to need to speak into that
This is,
mic, but it's addressed to her. We understand.
We have...
we need to be sure we understand and hear you clearly.
Yeah, I just wanted to tell her that, we just hadn't got to everybody yet. We have just got the association, Snowden Community Association, going since July, so we hadn't got to everybody yet, and sorry for that, but we have got about 102 right now that we have in the association, and we certainly will welcome her and all of her neighbors down there. I did want to react a little bit to what Mr. Brown said about not getting with him on the thing. We have worked through Doug Singleton countless times. I mean, me and him spoke a lot back and forth, and he was the mediator between. I didn't feel that I needed to call Mr. Brown. I didn't need to talk to Mr. Brown because Mr. Brown was actually having a business on property that he's not supposed to have a business on, so I didn't need to get involved in that. That's between him and the city. But Doug Singleton was the one doing the mediating in between. So as far as me not due diligence here with him is just not right. I mean, we were trying to do everything we could through Doug Singleton. So.
Yes, sir. We understand.
That's about all I've got. If y'all got any questions for me.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
I didn't understand.
I have a question.
Okay.
I have a question.
I'm sorry. Have a question?
Well, yeah, my question is, the previous speaker, the young lady who spoke before you did, now, if it's the neighborhood, don't you think that everyone should be included? Some might like it and some might not like it. So, will they left out?
No, we just hadn't got around to everybody yet. This has just got started because of this thing here. We're actually got a lot of the immediate Snowden area people involved in the thing, and we actually only had 2 meetings. We had a meeting that there was the firehouse at the Snowden Voluntary Fire Department was completely packed, couldn't get another person in there. Then the second meeting we had a potluck dinner, and it was more of a community type deal where a lot of the residents came to that. And we're going to continue to have those and invite everybody that's within our community to come, or even outside the community if they want to come visit. And we're going to ask people to come speak. Maybe we'll get some of you guys to come speak to us, and have a speaker every so often. We're going to try to do that about 4 times a year. But like I said, we're all working people, and it takes a lot to get all this organized, and we're not completely organized yet. So maybe everybody hadn't been knocked on the door yet, or contacted.
Well, that's good.
But we do have a website or a Facebook page. I'm sorry that people can look up and join our Facebook page, and it is Snowden AL well, that's actually the email address is snowdenal@gmail.com.
Okay, that's good. If you plan to contact everyone, that's good. So everybody will be involved in it. So that's good. If you continue to plan to do that. That's what we should do anyway.
Yeah,
That's
they
good.
are.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we're gonna get there. We just hadn't knocked on every door yet. I mean, that's coming.
Good, thank you. Hold on, I'm not through with him. Any other questions for Mr. Crutchfield? Okay. Mr. Brown, I'll give you just a moment. Be sure it's something new. And please speak clearly.
As you were saying about being involved with the community and the neighborhood watch, they have a Facebook page that they don't allow everybody into. Me and my associate, Mr. Valerius, who owns the property, he's tried getting requests to get into that Facebook supposedly where you can, if you have any concerns in the community to get into, such as anything that happens on the road, anything that the neighborhood needs to be on watch for, if there's reckless drivers or if there is, an
Sir, we're not dealing with that. We're dealing with the
I'm
issue of hand,
saying.
and that has to do with the nuisance, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. I believe we've heard testimony for those for and against this item. I will now open up the floor for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Reese, Mr. Pickett Reese.
My motion is to authorize Mr. Tommy Tyson, give him the authorization to issue an abatement order to abate the nuisance. I'll repeat that. I would like to authorize my motion is to allow Mr. Tommy Tyson, give him authorization to issue an abatement to abate the nuisance at hand.
Would you add the address, please?
At property located at 1890 Snowden Chambers 1 Road.
Second.
Have a motion from Mr. Reese and a second from Mr. Howell. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion as presented, please raise your hand. Motion's unanimous, motion carries. The nuisance is abated. That's it.
Motion to adjourn. We adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Brown. Have a second. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye.